Abdul Raphique was a boy with a very simple heart. He lived in a small, sunny town where the birds sang in the morning, and the streets were filled with the happy sounds of children playing. But Abdul was a little different from the other children. He did not know how to tell a lie, not even a tiny one. If his mother asked if he had finished his vegetables, he would say no, even if it meant no dessert. His words were always as straight and true as a perfectly drawn line. This wasn't because he was trying to be good, it was simply how his mind worked. The idea of saying something that wasn't real felt as strange to him as trying to catch the wind in a jar. Other children in his neighborhood often found his honesty quite peculiar. They would sometimes invent grand stories to make themselves seem more exciting. For instance, his friend Sam once claimed he had wrestled a crocodile in a dream. All the kids listened with wide eyes, completely captivated by the thrilling tale. Abdul, however, just looked puzzled. He raised his hand and asked, "But crocodiles don't live in our town, not even in dreams. Where did you find it?" Sam just laughed and told him it was only a story, but Abdul couldn't grasp the fun in pretending something so impossible. He preferred facts, like knowing the exact number of steps from his house to the school gate. This unwavering honesty sometimes made things a little awkward for Abdul. One sunny afternoon, his neighbor, Mrs. Gable, showed off her new hat, which was decorated with large, floppy plastic flowers. She twirled around and asked, "Isn't it the most beautiful hat you've ever seen, Abdul?" The other children nodded and said it was lovely. Abdul looked at the hat, his brow furrowed in thought. He thought about the real flowers in his garden, the soft, fragrant roses and the bright, cheerful daisies. He then looked at the stiff, shiny plastic on the hat. "It's very colorful," he said carefully, "but the flowers in my garden are much prettier because they are real." Mrs. Gable's smile faded just a little. Abdul didn't mean to be unkind. He simply saw the world in black and white, in truths and untruths. He couldn't understand why people would choose to say things that weren't exactly right. To him, the truth was like a comfortable old sweater, always warm and reliable. Lies, on the other hand, felt like scratchy wool that made you itch. He watched other people navigate their days with little fibs and grand exaggerations, and he felt like he was watching a play where he was the only one who hadn't been given a script. He just wanted to understand the rules of the world, but they seemed to change with every person he met. One day, Abdul's class had a surprise math test. The teacher, Mr. Harris, left the room for a moment to get more paper. As soon as he was gone, a few students quickly opened their books to find the answers. They whispered to each other, sharing formulas and solutions in hushed tones. Abdul watched them, his head tilted in confusion. He didn't understand why they would do that. The test was supposed to show Mr. Harris what they knew, not what their books knew. When his friend Ali leaned over and tried to show him an answer, Abdul just shook his head and covered his paper. "That would be cheating," he whispered back, his voice full of genuine bewilderment. Later that day, during lunchtime, the children were talking about the test. Some of them were boasting about how they had managed to get the right answers by peeking. They called it being clever. Abdul couldn't see the cleverness in it. He had tried his best and had gotten some questions wrong, but he felt that was okay. It just meant he needed to learn more. He tried to explain this to his friends. "But if you cheat, Mr. Harris will think you understand everything," Abdul said earnestly. "Then he won't know that he needs to teach us more about long division." His friends just rolled their eyes and told him he thought too much about things. The world of adults was just as confusing for Abdul. He once overheard his father on the telephone. His father told the person on the other end that he was stuck in terrible traffic and would be late. Abdul peeked out the window. The street was quiet and empty, with only a stray cat leisurely crossing the road. After the call, Abdul went to his father. "Papa," he asked, "where was the traffic? I didn't see any cars." His father chuckled and ruffled his hair, explaining that it was just a small white lie to avoid a long conversation. Abdul nodded, but he didn't understand. A lie was a lie, wasn't it? Why did its color matter? This experience left Abdul feeling more puzzled than ever. He started noticing these white lies everywhere. His mother would say a meal was no trouble at all when he had seen her spend hours in the kitchen. His older sister would claim to have a headache to avoid doing her chores. Each instance was like a little riddle he couldn't solve. He felt like everyone else was playing a game with invisible rules that he had never been taught. He wanted to ask more questions, to understand why the truth was sometimes hidden behind pretty, colorful words. But he worried that his questions would only make him seem stranger to everyone else. Abdul's confusion grew when he encountered things that were not real but were treated as if they were. One afternoon, his friend Maya brought a new doll to the park. It was a beautiful doll with shiny blonde hair and a sparkling pink dress. "This is Princess Aurelia," Maya announced proudly. "She comes from a magical kingdom far away." All the other children gathered around, asking questions about the princess and her kingdom. They played for hours, creating a grand adventure for Princess Aurelia, fighting imaginary dragons and attending royal balls. Abdul sat on a nearby swing, watching them with a deep sense of wonder. He just saw a plastic doll, not a princess. He tried to join in, he really did. But his mind kept getting stuck on the facts. When Maya said the princess was drinking tea from a tiny empty cup, Abdul pointed out, "But the cup is empty, there's no tea in it." Maya sighed and said, "We're just pretending." Abdul. Pretending felt like a very difficult job to him. It required you to ignore what you could see with your own eyes and believe in something that wasn't there. He couldn't make his brain do that. He wanted to play with his friends, but he felt like he was speaking a different language. A language of pure, simple reality in a world that loved make-believe. This feeling was strongest when the circus came to town. The posters showed a man pulling a car with his teeth and a woman floating in the air. Abdul was excited to see these amazing feats. In the big tent, however, he noticed things others seemed to ignore. He saw the thin, almost invisible wires holding up the floating lady. He saw that the strong man was pulling a car that was already rolling downhill. He tugged on his father's sleeve and whispered, "Papa, it's a trick, she's not really flying." His father smiled and whispered back, "I know, son, but isn't it a wonderful trick?" Abdul didn't think so. He felt a little disappointed, as if he had been promised magic but was only given a clever lie. The world seemed full of these substitutes, these things that looked like one thing but were actually another. People bought handbags that looked like expensive leather but were really just plastic. They ate crab sticks that had no crab in them at all. They cheered for tricks that were not real magic. Abdul felt lost in a sea of fakes and falsehoods. He just wanted something real to hold on to, something that was exactly what it appeared to be. He longed for the simple truth, but the more he looked for it, the more it seemed to hide behind a curtain of illusion and pretense. As Abdul grew a little older, he started to see a pattern. He noticed that while lies and tricks could be exciting for a moment, they often caused problems later. He saw his friend Sam get into trouble when his mother found out he had lied about finishing his homework. He saw Maya become sad when her precious Princess Aurelia doll broke, revealing that it was just hollow plastic inside. The excitement of the lie would fade, and what was left was often disappointment or trouble. The truth, on the other hand, was always steady. It might not be as thrilling as a made-up story, but it was strong and dependable, like the old oak tree in the center of town. One day, Mr. Harris's favorite pen went missing from his desk. It was a special fountain pen that his own father had given him. Mr. Harris was very upset. He asked the class if anyone had seen it. A few students blamed others, and some made up stories about seeing a stranger near the classroom. The room filled with confusion and suspicion. Abdul had been the last one near the desk, as he had stayed behind to ask a question. He knew that people might think he had taken it. His heart beat fast, but he knew what he had to do. He stood up and told the simple truth. "I did not take your pen, Mr. Harris," he said, his voice clear and steady. "But I did see it roll off your desk and fall into the wastebasket when you stood up." Mr. Harris rushed to the wastebasket, and there, nestled amongst crumpled papers, was his treasured pen. He looked at Abdul with gratitude and relief. He then looked at the rest of the class, who were now silent and ashamed. "Thank you, Abdul," Mr. Harris said warmly. "Thank you for being honest when it might have been easier to stay quiet. Your honesty is a very special thing." In that moment, Abdul felt a warmth spread through his chest. He hadn't told a grand story or performed a clever trick. He had simply told the truth, and it had solved the problem. It was a powerful feeling, more real and satisfying than any make-believe adventure. From that day on, Abdul understood. He realized that living in a world full of deception was tricky. But his inability to lie was not a weakness. It was his greatest strength. Honesty was rare, like a precious gem. It couldn't be faked or pretended. While others chased the fleeting excitement of lies and illusions, Abdul held on to something far more valuable. He had the truth, and he saw that being a truthful person in a complicated world was not just different, it was important. His simple, honest heart was a treasure, and he decided he would protect it always, navigating the puzzles of the world with the one true map he had.